Hey everyone, Anthony here from Coast to Coast Finance. I am super excited. We have a very special guest with us, Chloe Daniels, aka CloBare, financial coach extraordinaire. Chloe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Hope you're well. For those who maybe don't know you or aren't following you on Instagram, TikTok, one, their mistake, but two, could you maybe tell them a little bit about yourself and why you're so invested in personal finance?
Yeah, so my name's Chloe. Like you said, am a financial coach, a money coach. I create content on TikTok, Instagram. I have a blog and all of that good stuff where I focus on educating people on the basics of personal finance. I also provide individual coaching sessions and workshops and things like that. And I run a blog. So my blog has been the thing that's been around the longest. I started that back in 2017, and I actually started it as a platform to talk about money or really mental health and relationships first. And as I started going to therapy and dealing with those issues and kind of fixing those things in my life, I really couldn't ignore the fact that I still had a bad relationship with money and I needed to improve my relationship with money in order to kind of go to the next level. So I decided to just start writing about money by sharing my budget every month and sharing how I did with my budget every month, even if I did really poorly, which there were many months that I did very poorly. But I kind of just started in that way because that was the only way I knew how to do anything. I'm definitely somebody who likes writing. And so when I did it, I was like, you know what? I've been transparent about my journey this far. So why not be transparent about my personal finances too? So that, maybe I can help somebody learn along the way as well. And so that kind of catapulted, it just kind of like built off of each other. I think a lot of people start their journey wanting to be debt free. And then they learn that debt free is not everything. You also need to build wealth. And in order to do that, you need to invest. And once you get to that investing stage, I mean, at every stage, there's a learning curve. We're not taught this stuff in school.
Right.
And, I relied so heavily on people on the internet, blogs, YouTube, podcasts, Instagram, all of those things for my own education that I decided, you know what, I'd like to share my perspective too and what I've learned as well in hopes that I could help some people.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. I've checked out the website, seen your posts. I'm a big fan of your perspective and your journey. I think it's great. So, like, as you've been researching this stuff and as you've been learning, like anyone that you looked up to as a mentor or any maybe good financial books you can recommend, obviously, CloBare.com, great place to go for financial advice. But if anybody, like, where did you find that you learned the most from?
Yeah, so I want to say the very first series that I read about investing was J.L. Collins' Stock Series. And that's a free online blog series that he'll really just take you through the basics of investing as a long-term investor. And I learned so much just from that one series. And I love recommending it too because it's free. So it's like you can go learn for free a lot of everything that I did. I want to say everything I did was free. I didn't have to buy books or, I used the library or I watched YouTube videos. But my favorite resources, so the JL Collins Stock Series, one of the blogs that I could not stop reading when I first started was Millennial Revolution. And that's actually a Canadian blog, but I still learned so much because the principles of investing are the same. And they have a great free series on Investing 101. And then I also really started listening to Choose FI, the podcast. And I'm trying to think of what other podcasts, How to Money. I love How to Money. I don't really listen to them as much anymore just because I went right through them, I listened to as much as possible. And then I started listening to Bigger Pockets too. So I love those podcasts. And then for YouTube, I really love Investing with Rose. And Graham Stephan. Those are probably my two favorites. And then I also really love Our Rich Journey.
Yep. I'm so glad you mentioned that all this stuff is free. So in the most, unless you're getting personal help from somebody, maybe anybody out there that's wondering, oh, how am I going to afford to learn finance? You don't have to go and spend $40,000 on a degree like I did. You can go on the internet and try to find out some stuff, which is great. So you also mentioned earlier budgeting, and then, getting out of debt versus investing. In your experience as a financial coach, like what do people struggle with the most, or where should they kind of, when they take a look at their finances, where do you think they should look first?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first step, and what I've seen most of my clients, there's two spectrums. There's clients who are just starting out and have no idea how to get started. And then there are clients who are like, I don't understand this investing part. So with my clients who are just getting started, it's that first step of taking stock of absolutely everything that your financial picture is, understanding where your savings are at, understanding where your investments are at, understanding how much you're spending and how much you're bringing in a month, and just getting that on paper has been so eye-opening for so many of my clients, because you realize you do have money, or you realize you're not making enough money, or you realize you're spending too much. And it's like seeing the numbers allows you to make informed decisions moving forward. But a lot of people don't know how to put together that financial picture. They don't know, where, how do they even do that? What's the point? What will they learn from that? And it's like taking a moment to go through all of that and doing it with somebody is, I think it's been very helpful for a lot of my clients, because it's like you're holding their hand, you're guiding them through, you're explaining what these things mean.
Yeah.
So that, I think that awareness piece is a huge part. I think so many of us like to go through life just like hoping that our finances are going to work out, but that's stressful, never really knowing. And I was the same way, where it's just like, it'll work out eventually. And I think so many of us, it's so interesting, a lot of people think that someday they're going to be wealthy. They don't know how, they don't have a plan, they just think for some reason someday they're going to be wealthy. And it's like, eventually you have to recognize that this is this belief, but you have to put a plan in place. Like you can't reach that without a plan. And so I think that awareness piece is a big hurdle for people, but that alone can be life-changing, because you realize where your money is going and where you want it to be going to. And then the other thing that I see is a lot of people have just no idea how to invest. They don't know where to get started. They do not understand how it works. They think it's this risky thing that only rich people do. So kind of just that education piece on what stock market investing is, what options are available, what you can do, how you can limit your risk, and all of that. So that's a big piece. Like the education part's huge. And it's hard to do that in a one-on-one coaching. It's a little bit easier to do that in workshops and courses. But even on a one-to-one basis, it's talking and saying like, okay, let's first look at what you are currently invested in. I'll explain to you what these things are. And, we'll make sure that you're actually invested in your Roth IRA rather than your money's just sitting there and things like that. So it's that education piece for both sides.
Definitely. Yeah, I have even my friends come to me and say something like, hey, I want to get started day trading. And I'm like, maybe you should just, start saving, or like work on your debt a little bit before you try to do some swing trades that you don't really understand.
Oh, you cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I was just saying, when my friends or somebody asks like how to get started day trading, I just pretty much tell them don't.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is so many people there's so many influencers or creators in the space who are just talking about how much money they're making from day trading or Forex or crypto or all these other things, but they're not seeing the nuances of their decisions. Like that person may live at home in their parents' basement, and that's like that's why they can risk it all. They don't have any responsibilities. Whereas like if you're in your 40s with 3 kids and you're a single mom, like your risk preference is going to be very different. And it's like the awareness and understanding that yes, this person may be posting about how much money they made day trading, but they also aren't posting about how much money they lost yesterday, Yeah,
nobody's posting about losing money.
No.
Because I always find that interesting. I feel like for every person that's making money, there's somebody out there losing it, but you only read about the success stories. Like nobody wants to admit that they made a bunch of bad investments and lost their life savings.
Right. Well, and I think that that's a sign that there's something off here. If somebody's not talking about how the stock market goes up and it also goes down, or that crypto goes up and it also goes down, then there's like a little bit of a warning sign there. Like, okay, but there are days when this person has to lose too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So was there any kind of, I guess, turning point for you specifically, other than like getting involved online and like doing your research, like anything that made you be like, okay, I need to get my finances under control?
Oh yeah. So I started my career off in the nonprofit industry, and in 2018 I shifted over from the nonprofit industry into corporate, and not only corporate but corporate consulting. And so there was this huge windfall of money. I went from making like $67,000 a year to $91,000, and it was
Nice
like,
jump.
oh, I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second here. I could actually pay off my debt. So it started with this, like, I want to be debt free, because my dream was like, I want to travel the world and not have to worry about my student loan payments.
Right.
And so I was like, man, if I really focused on where my money is going, I could probably be debt free in a couple of years. And that's kind of cool, because I always thought that I'd just pay my debt forever, you know? And so I decided to track everything that I spent for 2 weeks just to see where my money was actually going, because I had tried the envelope method for so long and it wasn't working for me. And like, okay, but what am I actually spending my paycheck on? Because even though every year that I worked from 2015 to 2018, I was making significant bumps in my salary, but I was still living paycheck to paycheck. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I don't understand. And so once I tracked it, I realized I was spending all of my money, like $600 every 2 weeks, on eating out, drinking, brunching, dating, and then like being hungover and ordering snacks and like GoPuff, you know, and Grubhub. And so I was like, holy crap, like, I say that I value travel and experiences and spending time with my family and friends, but here I am spending all of my money on being drunk and hungover and going out to eat. And it's like, I could see my friend who lives in Germany for $600. I could see my grandparents for $600. I could, like, you know, take a week off and go home for, you know, $600. So realizing that my money was not at all aligned with who I thought I was as a person was like, okay, this needs to change. I need to start dedicating more resources to things that I actually care about.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you brought up eating out is definitely my biggest temptation financially. I love food. I live in Chicago. There's a million different options and I want to try them all. I just bought a house. So
nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's going to be a journey. Maybe will force me not to spend as much money going out.
It'll definitely be different. What neighborhood you buy in?
Forest Park, which is a suburb.
Next door to me.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Oak Park is like the first suburb right outside of Chicago, and then Forest Park is just a little bit next to that. So super close to the city. I love it. Close to public transportation. I'm actually going to rent out the unit there, so hoping that's going to, based on my calculations, it should be an income generating property. So if that's the case, then maybe I will go out to eat more. We'll see.
There you go.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, about like really looking at finances. I can't say his last name. His first name is like Ramit. He wrote the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Yeah.
And one of the most eye-opening things for me in that was he is an advocate of spending consciously. Like you said, if your thing is going out to eat and you can afford to spend $1,000 a week going out to eat, then like do that and have fun with it. But you don't get to do that and go out shopping and do the travel and do everything else. Like, just kind of decide what's important to you and spend your money on that. Maybe that's your kids. Your kids' education could be very important, and that's what you want to spend money on.
Exactly. I completely agree with that.
So what about, like, if you were to look back and be able to tell your younger self something now, knowing what you know now, what would that be?
I think I would explain to her what paying yourself first means, because I had always heard pay yourself first. Like, that was such a blanket piece of advice. And I was like, what does that actually mean though? I didn't really understand what that meant. I was just like, yeah, I pay myself like when I'm done paying my bills. Like, that's, I guess, like paying yourself first. So I really didn't understand that concept at all. Whereas now it's like, it's so simple. If you just make sure that you're treating your savings or your investing goals as actual expenses, and then that is not something that you can touch, then you're going to be in a fine place. You're going to be fine. And so, like, I think if I had mastered that a lot earlier and understood that, it would have made a really big difference for me, because I wouldn't have thought like, oh, I have $2,000 to spend this month. It's like, no, you don't have $2,000 this month. A lot of the times I would transfer it over into my savings. And then when I needed it, I would just take it out. And it's like, no, that's not really what that's for. So
Right.
I think even just like increasing my 401k contributions, increasing or starting a Roth IRA when I was younger would have helped me not access that money, so that then I had no other choice but to budget with what was left over. So I wish I could go back and teach Chloe that, and also tell her to open a Roth IRA. When I was making, when I was teaching English in China, I was making like $12,000 a year, but obviously it was a very different price of living over there. So like, man, if I had just put $200 a month in a Roth IRA, like that would be so great.
Anybody that doesn't know what a Roth IRA is, check it out. Go to either coasttocoastfinance.com or CloBare.com. You can read up all about it, and afterwards you will want to open one. Yes. I had a actually similar story. I actually did have somebody give me that advice when I was in my first job in a flooring company, 15 or 16. One of the journeymen in the warehouse said, if you save 10% of your paycheck, you're going to be a millionaire, so many years down the line. I wish I had listened to him at 16. So I finally got with the program more recently. So Steve, if you're out there, thank you for the advice. It took me a few years to listen, but I'm good. So how about what's your main goals? Like, how do you go about setting goals? Do you look at 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, or kind of what's the biggest thing you want to achieve in the near to midterm?
Yeah, so I mean, my biggest goal is that I want to get CloBare up to the place where I'm able to quit my job. I don't know if I will quit my job automatically when I'm making enough money from CloBare to do that. So shout out to my job, don't but I would like to have the option, because CloBare is definitely my passion, and teaching people how to money is my big passion. So that's a really big goal that I've been focusing on this year. In terms of financial goals, if CloBare doesn't work out, if, I have to stay in my job forever, my hope is to be able to retire in my early 40s, because I'm saving and investing about, give or take half of my income. And that's been the goal for me. It's not, I have a number in mind for when I want to retire or be able to retire. And it's once I have $1.5 million invested, I'll feel safe at going and doing CloBare full time anyway. But in terms of short-term goals and things like that, it's more, my goals right now are more career-oriented, work-oriented. I'm already maxing out my 401k. I'm already maxing out an IRA. So those are my financial goals that happen on a yearly basis, but those are almost on autopilot. Right. In other terms of that, it's because I am interested in quitting my job eventually. I'm looking at saving a year's worth of my emergency fund. That is partially going to be included in my real estate investment payout. So I pretty much have that. It's just whenever I get my real estate investment payout. So I'll probably invest a portion of it, and then the rest will be my quit my job emergency fund. Right. And besides that, it's interesting because right now I'm at an interesting place where I've already reached coast fire. I don't have to invest another dollar in order to have enough money to retire very, very securely, very comfortably by the time I'm 65. But now my goal is, okay, well, how soon can I really retire? And what's an interesting crossroad for me right now is if I was able to work full time on CloBare, I don't really ever want to retire. I love it. It's something that it brings me joy. It's my hobby. It's my passion. It's things that I care about. So it's knowing now that it's the goal for me isn't really to retire. It's just to make sure that I can now work as CloBare and be totally fine. So that's the major one. If you had asked me a year ago, my answers probably would have been different, but now it's I've seen the path and I've seen what I want to do. I don't really necessarily break it down into 5, 3, 10. It's really I want to be able to quit my job in about a year, but we'll see what happens. So that's the goal, and knowing that I really have income goals right now for my side hustle. And also I'm trying to keep my expenses low, because I know that once I transfer from, this cushy job of consulting and making, well into the 6 figures, I'm then going to switch into CloBare, where it's I'm willing to quit as soon as I make $50,000 a year from CloBare. So I'm that's going to be a very big switch for me. The nice thing is though, I know what I spend in a year. I don't spend more than $50,000 a year. I
Right.
spend about $40,000. So it's like $50,000 would mean I'd still have to cut back because obviously you have to pay taxes, you have to pay health insurance, you've got to pay the benefits that you don't normally have, you've got to invest on your own. So I'm like, 50,000 is my number, but I know even with that, I will still need to cut back pretty significantly. So that's kind of, I guess, my goals.
Yeah. No, those are good goals, and I am fully confident you will achieve them.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What about like, do you help other people set goals, or like how do you, when you do look at somebody else's finances, what do you feel is the most effective way to get them to kind of follow your advice? Because like I said, I can take advice, or we can hear the advice, but sometimes we don't actually do it or listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is that you have to find out what this person values and what they really, really want out of life, because we cannot assume that everyone wants to retire. We can't assume that everyone wants to buy a house, or we can't assume that, you know, we can't assume we know what people want. So once we figure out what they value, and I always ask, like, what is your dream life? Like, what would it look like? Just to give me some ideas. Like, you know, we're just, I want some components so that I know, you know, what's actually important to you. And for a lot of people, that's a tough question because, you know, I think a lot of people do not allow themselves to think about what their dream life is. They just know that right now it's not it. Like, they just know there's things right now that they don't like. And I think that when you have that conversation about what your dream life is, then it's like, what if I told you that we can make your money work towards this for you? So your dream life's not impossible. Most of the time for the dream lives that I've heard, it's not impossible at all. It's just deciding we're going to use our money as a resource to help us get there. And I think a lot of people don't think of it that way. They think like, oh, once I get this one job, then I'll have enough money to do this. But they don't think about how can I use the money that I have right now to create this dream life for me later on? And also, how can I incorporate components of my dream life right now by making my money work for me a little bit better? So I think once you tie that money to their goals and to their actual life goals, it becomes a whole lot easier to set those priorities and understand why you're setting those priorities. I think the issue is when you don't know why you're doing it. You just know you're supposed to be good with money. You don't really have a clear reason on why you're supposed to be good with money. You just know that that's like responsible. And it's like, once you have a clear vision of why you're doing it, it's like, that's the thing that's going to keep you motivated all the way. So getting really clear on that is something that I work with all of my clients. Sometimes people come in with a very clear why, and that makes our work even easier. But a lot of people, we've got to work on that. Like, we have to really understand, why are you doing this? Because if you don't know why you're doing it, it's gonna fail. Like, eventually it's just not gonna be the thing for you anymore.
Right. Yeah, I see that too. I also see a little bit of like, I don't want to say fear, but hesitance to pick a different path. Like, oh, I've been doing this for so long. Like, maybe they think they're too far along in their careers to make a change. Like, you can always change your mind on something. Like, just because you told somebody, oh, I'm gonna open a bar, open a restaurant, like, that doesn't work out. That's okay. Like, do something else too. So then, thinking a little bit about maybe even further forward looking, like, when I asked you, what you would say to your younger self, what do you think you'll say to your older self? That's a weird question, but
interesting. Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot of the same stuff that I struggle with now, is getting too caught up with all of my to-do lists. And I know that's not necessarily money related, but I'm a type 3 in that I am constantly looking for success. I am looking for the next project and what I can achieve. I just want to achieve things. Like, that is who I am to a T. And so I think my message in the future would be like, it's okay to chill out too. You got to keep managing that stress. You got to keep taking care of yourself, because if you don't, like, this isn't sustainable. And so that's something that I battle with all the time. And especially, I recently took a promotion at work, and I'm still, CloBare is still fully running and fully going. And it's like, I have to work more now in my day job. So being able to find some kind of balance. Like, no, there's probably not going to be a total balance. There's never going to be total balance. There's always going to be something that's taking more energy, more time, more money, whatever. But trying to manage my stress in a way that allows me to do it all. And also understanding, like, I couldn't get up a YouTube video this week. Like, it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't possible. And it's like letting that go and allowing myself to be nice to myself, essentially, and allow myself to, like, not put a YouTube video up and realizing, like, okay, you have 254 subscribers, Chloe. Like, it's gonna be okay. Like, if you lose 4 subscribers, it's not gonna be the end of the world. Like, you're still growing, you're still in the beginning. Like, yes, I know it's important to post regularly, but it's also important to sleep at night. It's also important to feel good. It's also important to take care of yourself. So I think that I feel like that's probably going to be a lifelong struggle for me to find that balance and allow myself that grace. But at the same time, you know, I'm working on it.
Yeah. So 60-year-old Chloe, if you're listening, you're welcome, because young Chloe is working her butt off.
Yes.
Well, I think we covered a lot. Is there anything else you want to cover? Like, you know, are you going to write a book for us soon, or what else do you want to say to the?
Yeah, I'm not currently working on a book. There are definitely a lot of things that I want to do, which is why I got to get rid of that pesky 9-to-5 job. Yeah. But I'm working on hopefully a course soon. Right now, my main goal is I am working on my CFP certification. So that's going to be taking a lot of my time over the next year. But once I have that CFP certification, I'll be focusing more on developing a course, doing more workshops, putting together an ebook, you know, putting together a guide, things like that. I feel like I'm behind on all of the collateral digital products that I could be providing to people, because people often ask for, you know, a comprehensive guide. They want a course, they want a class. And it's like, I only have stuff right now where it's like, it's live, where it's like, we're doing a workshop and it's on Zoom and it's right now. Whereas like being able to produce something that I don't have to exchange my time for money or my time to help people is definitely going to be a game changer for me. So that's definitely on the horizon. It's just one of those things where I really need to do it. It's just got to find the time.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Well, so everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Chloe, for being here. Check us out, CloBare.com. You can find her on Instagram, TikTok. Reach out to contact@CloBare.com. Schedule your financial coaching session. Also, coasttocoastfinance.com, or all the links will be down below in the video. Thank you so much again, Chloe. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you so much.